Good morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome. I am Michelle Howard. I'm the director of the Small Business Programs Office here at WMATA, and I bring greetings this morning to you from our General Manager, Mr. Randy Clark, and our VP and Chief Procurement Officer, Ms. Fifi Magosi. Welcome to WMATA Small Business Programs Office virtual educational presentation to help support you and your business and to thank you for participating today. The presentation that we are waiting for is by Ms. Lisa Anderson. It's Beyond the Plateau, Diversifying Revenue Streams to Build a Resilient Business. And of course, this is in collaboration with our partners at the DC Small Business Development Center Network. We have been working with them for about close to 5 years now, I believe. And let me tell you something, top notch all the time. Remember that at WMATA, your participation is key, and we encourage all small businesses to get certified with WMATA. Please check out our website and learn more about our programs. We are definitely open for business, and we want you to be a part of our contracting opportunities. Remember, we are your metro, the way forward. Please put all questions in the chat and remember to fill out your surveys that will be sent to you after the presentation. These surveys help us to plan programs and events that can benefit or support your business and development and growth of your business. So again, I want to thank you, and I know for sure you will enjoy the session we have for you today. I am going to introduce a long time friend of mine, Mr. Charles Mott, and he will introduce Miss Lisa Anderson. Charles is from the DC Small Business Development Center at Howard University in Washington, D.C. He is currently the associate director there with both administrative and business counseling responsibility. Charles has over 40 years in the defense management and consulting industry with large and small firms in management and team leader capacity. He has over 30 of those years of experience and knowledge in small business management and leadership and management as a business owner, employee, a business counselor, and a consultant with small firms. He is a certified project management professional, PMP, with the Project Management Institute. At this time, I want to bring to you my friend, my colleague, Mr. Charles Mott.
Michelle, thank you so much for that great introduction. As Michelle said, I am the Associate Director with the DC Small Business Development Center at Howard University. For those of you who are on this webinar who don't know about us, we are a grant-funded program, partially grant-funded through the SBA and also through Howard University to provide business assistance, free business assistance in a variety of ways to small business DC small business owners, and also to those who are interested in establishing a physical location in DC. Our services, as mentioned, are free of charge, and we invite you who do fit that criteria to definitely come check us out. I'll put the link to our site in the chat. Today, I have the distinct honor of introducing our speaker today. I've known Lisa almost as long as I've probably known Michelle, and she has been a fabulous resource to the SBDC, and she's been with the program here with Metro in terms of speaking several times. I'm going to read a brief portion of her bio. She has an extensive bio that you can read on the link where you signed up for this webinar. If you click on her picture, it provides the complete text. But in the meantime, I'm going to read off a little bit about her. Lisa Anderson is a highly accomplished strategic business advisor and virtual CFO with Inavo Transformation Solutions, LLC. With 3 decades of experience, she is a certified public accountant, certified leadership coach, and government GovCon compliance expert. A 5-time business owner, author, and entrepreneur, Lisa has made a lasting impact in the small business arena. Her passion is empowering small, minority-owned, and women-owned businesses to thrive from within. As a CFO and strategic advisor, she helps clients align financial strategies with mission-driven goals, driving remarkable results, including up to 600% growth in a year and placement on the Inc. 5000 list. Lisa is also founder and host of the acclaimed Plateau to Profits podcast and author of Beyond the Plateau, 5 Simple Steps to Scale $1 Million Business. And Lisa will be talking more about her background. Um, she's she's lived the experiences of many of you who are on this webinar and has some great information to share. So without further ado, Lisa, please take it away.
Thank you, Charles, and thank you, Michelle, for inviting me to speak once again before your group of small business owners. And thank you for the warm introduction. I am going to go ahead and get started sharing information. So today we're going to talk about Beyond the Plateau, diversifying revenue streams to build a resilient business, which I think is extremely important. And as Charles mentioned, I have lived through many instances where we have an opportunity to assess and determine what are really good approaches to ensuring that we are building solid, sustainable, resilient organizations. So before I begin, I'd like to check the pulse of who's in the room. And I also like for this to be an interactive session if we can. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions before we get into the content. And if you could answer these questions by placing the information in the chat, that would be extremely helpful. So the first question is, in one word, what does your company offer? What do you do? In one word, put that in the chat. I'd like to know who we have in the audience. Do we have service providers? Do we have product providers? Do we have construction? I see consulting. Okay, fantastic. Anyone else? There's several business owners here. Fundraising consultant. Okay, fantastic. Let's keep it going. What else do we have in the room? Who else is in logistics? Okay, excellent. Next question is, who is your primary customer? And I want you to choose one from the list. Is your primary customer a federal government? Is your primary customer state and local? Do you primarily do business with commercial entities or other? Let me know. Okay, so I see other. I see state and local. I see education. Fantastic. Commercial. Excellent. Very good. My next question is, are you primarily a prime contractor or a subcontractor? Are you primarily a prime contractor? Okay, I see subcontract, prime contractor. Excellent. Very good. Very good. And my last question to you, thinking about all the answers to the preceding questions, do you consider your answers to be a strong differentiator for your business in the marketplace? Do you consider the fact that you are a consulting firm primarily doing business with the federal government as a subcontractor? Let's say that's your answer. Do you determine that to be a strong differentiator for your business? And I want you to answer yes or no. And no judgment here, just an answer, yes or no. I see no, 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 no. Okay, fantastic. All right. So my objective in today's session is to shift mindset. And I want you to start thinking as business owners a little bit more strategically and sustainably versus operating in what we call survival mode thinking. I want you to go from survival mode, asking the questions of how do I win the next contract, which is what many of us ask, right? And instead, I want you to shift over into sustainability and ask yourself, how do I build predictable revenue across markets? Okay. And the reason why this is extremely important is one of the things that we do with my company and working with small businesses is we're looking for you to build an asset, a very strong asset that ultimately becomes a part of your legacy. That's what we want. We want this to be a business, an asset that lasts for a long time, maybe even beyond yourself for generations. And we want you to understand that building legacies and building that asset is a strategic decision. There are steps that you need to take in order to ensure that you are building sustainability within that business so that you are able to see a business of value, of quality, and of legacy. Okay. So instead again of asking, how do I win the next contract within, which places you in a short-term focus based on immediate concerns, immediate opportunities, and then also switching you from being reactive and always focusing on the procurement cycles. And then also, we want you to shift from measuring your success by a single contract win to really being strategic and looking at your business opportunities across multiple years and doing planning across multiple years, being more proactive with the market, and diversifying your business opportunities within the marketplace, and then also measuring your success by your portfolio stability. So this is a mindset shift. And quite frankly, many small businesses aren't thinking in those terms. So we want you to start doing that. So as we move forward, before we dive into the content, I want you to imagine a couple of scenarios. So imagine this. Imagine that your largest contract is not renewed. Imagine your largest contract is not renewed. So this is not theoretical. This is a scenario that happens to many small contractors every single year. So the question is not whether disruption will occur, because it will. It is whether your business structure can absorb what occurs as a result of the disruption. So when your largest contract ends, could you sustain losing 42% of your revenue? That's a real potential. As a result of losing 42% of your revenue, could your operation sustain overhead crisis, where your infrastructure is very difficult to scale back, your infrastructure and your fixed costs, and now we're having to manage through financial strain? Will you have an opportunity? Are you able to sustain yourself through making those hard staffing decisions? Are you where you have to potentially lay off a core group of your staff? And then also, will your business be able to sustain banking pressure, where lenders are now questioning the financial stability of your business? So you imagine that. Imagine that with your business. Imagine federal appropriations are delayed. And this is another real scenario. We have already witnessed within a short period of time a ripple effect of federal funds being either delayed or they're not appropriated. We just went through, actually, we're right now in a partial federal government shutdown. And so you want to make certain that you understand the impacts of these things, and can your business sustain over the course of a 90-day period if federal appropriations are delayed. Okay. The next question is, imagine this, that your certification status changes. If certifications are your primary reason why your customers hire you, whether it is a prime contract or a subcontract, then your revenue is at risk. I want you to understand that. If that is the primary reason why your customers are hiring you, then your revenue is at risk. Why? Because your DBE or other certification eligibilities could shift based upon your ownership. It could shift based upon your net worth. We're seeing that right now in many cases in the marketplace. Your small business status could expire. You could graduate outside of the primary NAICS code, become a little bit too large for the NAICS code that you're currently operating in. Your compliance value disappears. That could be a cause for concern, where your contractors, prime contractors, are no longer in need of leveraging your set-aside components. Your pipeline shrinks rapidly. As a result, opportunities that were once accessible are no longer available to you as a small business. As we speak right now, we are working with this as a really serious concern for companies who are 8A certified at the federal government level. In fact, today, I've had a conversation with a small business that we support and a team of attorneys in defense of their 8A, continuous in the 8A program. And so many of their contracts are directly associated to their certifications. So I started this by saying, if your certification is the primary reason why your customer is hiring you, then your revenue is at risk. Okay. Imagine this. Imagine that prime contractor decides to change their strategies. And in turn, they decide that they want to insource the work that they are now outsourcing to you. That happens. And that happens when there's a market disruption all the time. Let's say that your partnership shifts and the prime contractor selects other subcontractors. And let's say that your subcontractor opportunities are reduced, that the prime contractor restructures the teaming approach. And instead of getting a good lion's share of the work, now you're getting a small percentage of the work. If this happens to you and suddenly 60% of your subcontract revenue disappears, how would you handle that? How would you handle that? So these are real true risk factors that are happening in the federal marketplace. So what's actually happening right now? These scenarios have happened over time. I've been in business for 29 years, and I've seen many cycles of disruption across the marketplace. And each one of these things has happened at different levels of intensity. So this is not new. But over the course of this last year has been extremely intensified as it relates to the procurement processes and securing our revenue opportunities. These have intensified significantly in the current procurement environment. Small business landscape has shifted dramatically, and understanding these changes is essential to your strategic planning. So again, we're looking to build sustainability. We're looking to shift our mindset so that we are maintaining stability. So I'm not going to go through my full bio because Charles did a great job of that. But I will say that I am just like you. I'm a small business, just like you. I've been in business for 29 years. I've seen a lot of the cycles that companies have gone through. I serve as a fractional CFO to small businesses in various capacities, and I see a lot of information that if we leverage that information in the right way, we're able to strategically advance our businesses. And that's what this discussion is all about. I am also the author of 2 books, and one that is in the process will be released pretty soon into the marketplace. So Beyond the Plateau, 5 Simple Steps to Scale Your Way to $1 Million Business, and Beyond Legacy Now, the Pulse Profit Business Planning Journal. Those 2 are in the market right now. And then the one that I'm working on is From Risk to Resilience, a practical guide to vetting customers. So the reason why I'm sharing this with you is much of what I'm going to talk about today, I talk about in these books as well. These are lived experience. So I always like to start each of my sessions with a relevant quote. And the quote today is, "Numbers tell a story and they never lie." Remember that. Numbers tell a story and they never lie. The power to grow your business is held within the numbers of your business. So I want you to always remember that. So when we talk about the new market reality, what is happening right now in the marketplace? We're experiencing funding freezes, policy reversals, agency restructuring, and set-aside scrutiny. That is all happening right now, and it has been happening with intensity since January of 2025. And it's been happening at unprecedented levels, okay? And so what we want you to be able to do is to be able to understand what's happening in the marketplace, take a look at your business, and determine where do we need to build additional strength, because additional strength gives you the opportunity to build sustainability, okay? And we want you to be a long-term asset building, legacy building organization, okay? So what does this all mean for small businesses? So from a small business perspective, this means that we have to sustain delayed awards. Contract decisions are taking significantly longer in this current marketplace. We have to sustain contract modifications. We've seen existing contract agreements being either eliminated, or in some cases, the Terms of the agreement are not being extended into the next year. So we need to be prepared for that. We need to be prepared for increased competition, because anytime that there is a market disruption, it shakes things up. And it causes, when you think about shaking a tree, it causes the limbs to fall, the limbs and the leaves to fall. And when they fall, you start to see there's a lot on the landscape now. And that's what's happening right now, is the landscape is being shaken up, and there's a lot of competition that is rising as a result of that. Why? Because now we're trying to compete for the limited amount of dollars that are available to us now. Okay. And then there's pricing pressure. Pricing pressure, meaning from a small business perspective, we are put in a position where we're now having to operate against shrinking margins. Okay. And then priority shifts. The infrastructure focus, the changes in the infrastructure, that's changing rapidly, which also changes our pipeline of opportunities. So this is all impacting us as small businesses. If 70% of your revenue depends on one agency, if 70% of your revenue depends on one agency, the agency's stability becomes your company's instability. Okay. So we've got to start thinking beyond one customer, beyond one market. We've got to start thinking, taking a look at the range of opportunities that are out there in the marketplace. Okay. And that is how we start to establish diversification. And that's also how we start to establish sustainability. Okay. So before we dive into diversification, I want you to understand concentration. And concentration is typically a word that you may not hear often, except for when it's time to have a conversation with your banker. Your banker is concerned about concentration. They want to know, to what degree is your revenue impacted by one area, whether it is one customer, one market, one type of certification. They want to know, how concentrated is your business. The higher the concentration, the greater the risk. I want you to understand that. The higher the concentration, the higher you're concentrated in one specific area, the greater you're seen as a risk to your banker. And quite frankly, that should be a risk to you. You should understand that is a risk to you as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about concentration and what that really means, and what you should be looking at from a financial perspective as it relates to your business, as well as from a statistical standpoint. So most small businesses are not looking at concentration. In fact, when I start working with any small business, they're never looking at concentration. It's not until we start to slice and dice and analyze their information, and we start to provide them with more information about their business, and where we see some risk areas, that they start to really understand and manage concentration. Okay. So in most cases, on a monthly basis, businesses review, they track revenue trends, they track expense categories and profit margins. That's typically what small businesses are looking at in general. And these are essential metrics. They tell a story about your business, where it has been. It tells a story about the impacts of your decisions. And it also tells a story about how I'm going to say this, how your financials can help you help drive and steer your forward motion, your mission. Okay. But these are not the only metrics that you should be managing against. Okay. So what we rarely track is your customer concentration, right? How much are we relying upon one customer? We rarely track the market concentration. Where are we inserting ourselves in the marketplace? It rarely tracks the certification dependency, because that's a risk as well, as we talked about previously through the scenarios. We rarely look at our revenue mix between prime and subcontractor. And then we rarely look at the impacts of the various contract mix that we have in place, fixed price versus time and material versus cost reimbursable contracts, or even IDIQs versus other contract vehicles. So we want you to start looking at these things because there are hidden risks in these numbers. And then once you understand the risk, you know that what types of things you can do about managing that risk. So here's a concentration evaluation, and these are actually real numbers taken from a dashboard of a small business that we have worked with over the years. And what this shows is a customer mix in terms of where they are in the marketplace, federal versus state and local governments versus commercial. It also shows their contract type distribution, the types of contracts that they're operating under, whether it's task orders, IDIQs, fixed price, or time and material. And it also shows certification dependencies, DBE, MBE, and open award competition. So these are the types of contracts that they have been awarded, types of opportunities. And when I take a look at this profile, this revenue profile, it provides some level of concentration risk. Okay, so half of the total revenue is tied to a single federal customer. 68% of their revenue is coming from a single federal customer. Now, what happens? I mean, it sounds great, right? It means that we've got strength in those numbers. What that means is that we've established a really good relationship with an existing customer. But what happens, like what we've experienced over the last year, where funding stops, the customer starts to look at different procurement strategies. The contract terms of the terms of the contract are not being renewed. What happens? What happens? Okay. When we take a look at the contract types, there's also risk in primarily working under an IDIQ scenario. It sounds good. We've got a contract vehicle in place. We have a really good vehicle to go out and market to our customer to obtain new work. But what happens if the government or the agency or the customer that we're working with decides not to leverage that contract any longer? Their procurement requirements shift. What happens then? And then they're heavily relying upon their certifications. In this particular instance, 70% of their certifications is being leveraged for contract opportunities. So what happens? What happens if we're no longer looking at that? In order to grow and sustain, we need to look beyond these numbers. We need to leverage this information. We need to know exactly where we stand. And then what things do we need to do in order to change our positioning? Okay. All right. So concentration, I'm going to say, is not your enemy, and it's not. It is a data point. We want to make certain that we understand everything about our business, where we stand in terms of viability and sustainability, and our ability to continue to operate profitably as an organization, and where there may be some risk. But concentration does provide you with some strength. It does show that you have some strength in certain areas. So compliance expertise. In this particular area, it shows that you understand the complex regulatory environment of a specific customer that you're working with. That's a strength, right? And that's probably a market differentiator against some others who are competing that don't understand your customer's landscape. It shows that you have procurement knowledge, that you have mastered the procurement cycles, the submission requirements, and the evaluation processes, which is another good thing, right? That's another strength. And it also helps to establish credibility. And what this shows is that you have been able to build relationships within the existing market scenarios, the existing customers that you're working with. You've been able to develop those strong relationships. So the goal of understanding concentration is not to abandon your concentration, but instead to understand it, to leverage it, and to strategically expand beyond it. That's what we want to be able to do, is to expand beyond it. Your strength in one market becomes a foundation for growth into adjacent markets. So what we want to be able to do is to understand where our strength is. And now let's take a look at an adjacent market and see how we can take this strength and shift that strength or into advancing our opportunities in that new marketplace. And that's how concentration can be used. Okay. So with that said, we want you to shift your thinking again and ask strategic questions. Instead of asking, are we too concentrated? Ask yourself, what is our concentration teaching us about our capabilities? That's a strategic question. Okay. That is a sustainability question. Instead of asking, should we be worried about our customer mix? I want you to start asking, how do we leverage this strength to design strategic diversification? We want to be able to take, again, the strength of where we are and shift and parlay that into growing into another area. And then instead of asking, is this dangerous? And you should ask that question, but is this dangerous? You want to ask, where can we replicate this success? So this helps to reframe the shift in conversation from a defensive risk management to offensive strategic planning, because that's what legacies are. That's what asset building is. It is a strategically planning organization to grow beyond where you currently are. Okay. Your current concentration is not a problem to be solved, it is intelligence to be leveraged. And the capabilities that drove success in one market, I'm going to repeat this again, can be systematically transferred to adjacent markets. Okay, so that's what we want to be able to do. So building diversification is the next step. Once you understand where you're concentrated, the next step is, okay, so how do we diversify? How do we break up the pie a little bit and start to shift and start to build opportunities in other areas, or maybe build upon opportunities in other areas that we're already working in, but maybe our percentages aren't as great. Okay, because I'm gonna tell you, in the market, this current market and the things that we experienced over the course of the last year, when I look at the companies who have survived with strength, the ones who survived with strength are the ones who were diversified. So they work with multiple agencies, they work within multiple markets, so that when one market started to have a disruption, the other markets continue to operate, right? So we want to make certain that diversification is something that we have at front of mind as it relates to our concentration. So diversification generates visibility, intentional expansion, and systematic way to reduce risk while preserving core strengths. That's what diversification is. Okay. All right. So there are three key steps to increasing diversification. The first thing is you want to develop a diversification dashboard. And what that really means is you've got to take a really close look at your financial statements. We're not just looking at revenue, total revenue, or profit, or gross margins. We're looking at all the other things in between. And we really got to get good at slicing and dicing and analyzing the information. Because at the end of the day, you cannot manage what you do not measure. In order to be able to measure certain things and manage against them, you've got to get very close and detail-oriented and intimate with the information. Remember, when I opened up, I said, numbers tell a story and they never lie. So this is a different way of looking at your numbers, okay? So what do you want to include on your diversification dashboard? These are examples of things that will help you evaluate your concentration and help you to establish your strategy for diversifying. Okay. So the first thing is your revenue by market. You want to take a look at your revenue and you want to determine, based upon how we generate our revenue, what percentage of our revenue is coming from federal, state and local, and private sector. Okay. And those are just three areas. There are other areas that you can break that down into as well. but you want to take a look at how your revenue is being diversified. Okay. Second, you want to look at revenue by agency. Okay, so we've got revenue by market, now we've got revenue by agency. And we want to look at the specific customers that we are supporting. Okay, and to what percentage of our revenue is coming from those specific customers. Okay. And then you also want to look at contract type mix. Okay. In this particular instance, you want to take a look at the percentage of your revenue that's coming through fixed price contracts versus cost reimbursable contracts versus time and materials, IDIQs, GSA schedule, whatever the contract types that you are operating under. You want to know how much of your revenue is coming from those different areas and avenues. And I'm going to tell you a quick tip or insider knowledge about this. I can typically take a look at your contract mix and tell you how profitable you are. Or I can take a look at your contract mix and tell you which contracts are contributing towards good profitability and which projects are eroding your profitability. And 9 times out of 10, your fixed price contracts play a role in that. So you want to take a look at the contract mix that you are operating under as an organization. The next is certification dependency. At the end of the day, we want to grow up and we want to grow out, right? And so we leverage our certifications as a means to get our foot in the door. But we want to be in a position where we are preparing our businesses to compete within the open market. We don't want to stay forever in that certification zone, okay? And so we want to take a look at our contracts, our revenue, and how they're being generated based upon certifications, whether it is your DBE, your MBE, your 8A, your service stable on veteran, whatever the certification is. We want to know what percentage of your revenue is being generated from each of those areas, as opposed to, or in comparison to, open competition. Because again, at the end of the day, we want to grow up and we want to grow out. Okay. The next is to evaluate your prime versus sub exposure. Okay. It is good to establish partnerships, to work with other organizations. And in fact, in this particular market, working with other entities as a subcontractor is not a bad idea. But we want to keep our finger on the pulse of how much of our work we're operating as a subcontractor versus a prime contractor. And here's one of the couple of reasons why you want to measure that. You know, what percentage is one versus the other is because number one, profitability matters. And in many instances, we're more profitable when we're prime versus when we're sub. Okay. So we want to measure that. The other reason why we want to measure that is we're building an asset and we're building this for legacy, right? So we want this to be a long-term, profitable, cash generating entity. Okay. So that one day when we get to the end of the road in our exit strategy, and everybody's got to have an exit strategy. That's a total conversation for another day, but everyone needs to have an exit strategy. And your exit strategy will determine the value of your the mix of your contracts will determine the value of your business and your ability to exit. Exit in many cases means that we're potentially going to sell our business to another organization. And our other organizations will place higher value on the purchase of your business if you have more of a prime contractor mix than you have a subcontractor mix. So there's a lot of different reasons strategically why we want to measure our work as a percentage of prime versus sub. Okay. In addition, you want to make certain that you're looking at margins by segment. So how profitable are we within each of the different markets that we're operating under? Is commercial more profitable than state and local, or vice versa? We want to be able to determine which markets generate the greatest margins for us, okay? Because there are strategic decisions that we can make when we understand and know that. We also want to take a look at our pipeline mix. And this is all about business development and the opportunities that we have coming in. It tells a story about our future. And our pipeline mix, we want to make certain we take a look at the percentages as it relates to the revenue market. I'm sorry, as it relates to the market and the types of contracts that we have in that pipeline. But we want to make certain that our pipeline is strategically informing or strategically shifting or supporting or strengthening the other areas of our business. So if we find that we're heavily concentrated in one area, we want to look to our pipeline and see what percentage of our pipeline, our new opportunities do we have on the table that will come in that will help us diversify that revenue mix. So you want to be able to look at your pipeline mix as well. And then I stuck this last one in because many don't think about this as it relates to their revenue generation, but jurisdiction and proximity. Where are you operating today? What area geographically is your revenue being generated? What are the percentages in terms of how that revenue is being generated as opposed to other areas? And is there an opportunity through our diversification strategy to add other jurisdictions? And are some jurisdictions more profitable than others? So you've really got to analyze the information. You really got to slice and dice your financial statements and take a look at revenue, cash flow, and how these things are being generated. Okay. And where we find strength, where they may be risk, and in how we can leverage our strength to shift into other areas. So I hope this is making sense for you all, and I hope this is helpful. But if you start to look at your financial statements in a different way and start looking at ways in which you can diversify, I think you'll start to identify ways in which you can create sustainability. Diversification is engineered through data, not desperation. So we want to take a look at the information. We want the numbers to tell the story, because we know they're not going to lie to us. And then we want to create the dashboards where we can actually monitor and take a look at the impacts of this. So sample dashboards, we've already looked at one. This is a dashboard that we actually incorporate in the financial statements that we leverage, that we, report back to the companies that we support. Every single company we work with gets a dashboard that is similar to this. And we have other things that are incorporated in the dashboard as well. Or you could also incorporate a dashboard that looks like this, and it's comparing your different components, the different areas on your dashboard in a different pictorial way. So it really depends on how you want to see it, okay? But you want to start to incorporate these dashboards in your financial reporting. So your first step in diversification is to take a look at your financials, slice them, analyze them, dice them, and then put them into a diversification dashboard, okay? The second step is to set strategic guardrails. So these are the measurements that we want to put in place in different areas to make certain that based upon, our market benchmarks or market trends and how we fit into those areas, how should we look, right? What is our objective? So let's take, for example, in terms of our customer concentration limit. You may not want more than 40% of your annual revenue to come from one particular customer. Okay, so you want to establish benchmarks or what do you call it? Levels in which your revenue, in which you're measuring your revenue to ensure that you're getting into a danger zone or you're getting into a warning zone. And now maybe we want to start to look at ways in which we need to diversify. Okay. So you want to set up guardrails for your customer concentration limits, your market diversity requirements. Okay. So how much of our revenue do we want to make certain that we're generating in different market areas? You want to look at channel balance target, which is the balance between your prime contracts and your subcontracts. I think that's critical. And then certification independence. You want to take a look at, what level what percentage, what's the highest percentage that we want to operate as 8A or MBE or any other certification versus open market competition. Okay. So a pro tip in this particular area is to use AI tools as your friend, to do a little bit of market research. And I use Perplexity a lot in terms of doing market research, but conduct market research to determine in each of the areas on your dashboard, and based upon the type of company we are and the markets that we operate in, what are the key benchmarks of concentration, that limits that we want to establish and start to measure our company against. Okay, so use Perplexity or any other research tool that can help you determine that for your business and for your company. And then once you do that, you want to put certain, again, reporting dashboards in place that help you evaluate how well we're doing. Okay, so this is just an example of a guardrail dashboard. And essentially, the objective on the right is that our revenue will not exceed certain percentages in these key areas. So in this particular example, revenue targets for our largest customer will be less than or not greater than 40%. Okay, so it will not be greater than 40%. Our top high 3 customers would be no greater than 65%. And these are just examples. Our highest, largest project, no greater than 25% of our revenue. And our highest subcontract revenue is no greater than 50%. So you have these benchmarks in place, and now we can start to measure our actual revenue percentages against these benchmarks and put a tool in place that shows us how does our current position, which is in blue, measure against our target guardrails. And if our current is greater than our target, now we know that we need to start looking at in our pipeline, right? Go back to our pipeline and see where we have opportunities to help us shrink some of the current percentages and increase percentages in other areas. Okay. So you want to put these types of measurements in place. And again, this is all based upon the analysis that you're doing with your financial statements. Okay. Step number 3 is to expand intentionally. And this is where that pipeline comes into play. Diversification is the systematic leverage of existing capabilities, leveraging our existing capabilities into adjacent markets. So now we know we may be heavily concentrated within the federal space. Now we understand that in order for us to, that's where we have our current strength resides, but we want to build sustainability. So now we want to diversify. So we want to start looking at target state agencies as an example that value our federal experience. We want to look at approach regional transit authorities with similar project types. We want to engage airport authorities as an example that need federally compliant contractors. We want to leverage past performance to demonstrate capability transfer. And again, all of this is these are the strengths that we have from doing primarily work in one market that we can now transition into other markets. Okay. And that, again, this is a pipeline analysis. Or we find that our subcontracts are dominant, that our revenue is being generated primarily through subcontracting. Now we want to develop a direct relationship with agency program managers. So let's start developing relationships with organizations directly. So maybe we can start to position ourselves as prime contractors instead of subcontractors. We want to strengthen prime contract capture strategy and positioning. So what does that mean? That means that as we are building our opportunity pipeline, that we're not just looking for ways in which to partner with other businesses as a sub on their work, but we're also looking for opportunities where we can leverage our strengths to be a prime contractor. And we don't necessarily have to always go after the largest contracts out there. We can go after contracts of size that give us the opportunity to get our foot in the door, start to expand and grow within that organization and within other organizations within that landscape. Okay. We want to build capability statements that emphasize direct delivery experience. Okay. So we've got to showcase our strength as it currently exists and how that relates to the new market as a prime contractor that we're looking to enter into. And then target smaller opportunities. I've already said this, where you can be the prime, right? You don't always have to go after the big work, the largest contract. Go after something that is, that you can do the work, that you have the capacity and the capability to do that work. Go after that. Let me tell you, my small contracts turned into large. My first company, we did work directly with the federal government. And initially, our work started as purchase orders, small, simplified acquisition purchase orders. And through the development of the relationship, getting to know our customer, the procurement process, we were able to then expand those opportunities into larger, longer term contracts. So we built from the small pieces into larger pieces. And that's a strategy that works for many small businesses. And then if your company is certification driven, you want to strengthen value proposition beyond your eligibility status. So really, in this particular area, we're focusing more on our capabilities and the solutions that we bring to the marketplace and how we can directly work with or support agencies based upon our capabilities and our niche, the niche that we have in the market, versus just leveraging and over leveraging our certifications. Okay. Refining capability statements to emphasize that is key. Building case studies to demonstrate measurable outcomes. You want to start building that. You want to start talking about your past performance. I know that for many years, the question with the challenge with small businesses is, in terms of our past performance, we don't have any past performance directly with an agency, but we have plenty of past performance in commercial entities. Well, guess what? The procurement cycle is changing now. And with the changes in the procurement requirements, small businesses in particular are now able to leverage non-federal past performance in federal procurement opportunities. So be on the lookout for that. Okay. And then develop relationships based on performance, not just compliance. So we want you, yes, the certifications are a tool. It is a way for us to build contracting opportunities, but we have to think strategically about the fact that it is a tool. We want to grow beyond that tool. We want to be able to position our companies to operate in full and open competition. Okay. So that's expanding intentionally. So when we think about expanding intentionally, I want you to think about what we developed as the opportunity pyramid. And the opportunity pyramid kind of shows you the ways in which you can diversify your revenue portfolio. And it starts with the lowest level of the pyramid represents the lowest hanging fruit. The opportunities where there's a lot of the opportunities exist. The dollar amounts may not be as great as they are at the highest tier, but we can diversify pretty quickly. We can become well known in the marketplace, and that can also help us to increase our past performance, and also start to look at ways in which we can increase our opportunities or diversify opportunities within other levels, other market areas, okay, other market segments. So at the lowest tier is small and mid-sized commercial opportunities, being able to look at ways in which we can either partner with or support or work for companies that are at the lowest tier. Next is city and local governments, P3 partnerships, corporations, and school districts. Those are typical areas that we might want to take a look at and see if we can expand within those areas based upon our current strengths. The next tier is state and local, state government, transit authorities, ports authorities, airport authorities, and public works. You want to take a look at ways in which you can start to do business with these agencies and organizations that make sense for your business. And in the highest tier is federal. Procurement dollars exist at every level. Now, I'm not suggesting that you try to go out there today and diversify in every single one of these areas. I always say there's power in three. Pick 3 areas that you want to focus in on and go for those 3 areas. Okay. So consider the opportunity pyramid as you think about ways in which to expand your reach. And then why mixing opportunity levels is strategic. Incorporating a mix of opportunities offers advantages for small and mid-sized contractors, while federal opportunities provide scale, state, local, and other opportunities often provide accessibility and relationship advantages. So we always talk about ways in which to get our foot in the door. Well, this is suggesting that it's easier to get your foot in the door with some of the lower tier areas on the opportunity pyramid than it is at the highest tier. So let's go knock on some doors there. Okay. So there are smaller contract sizes. We want to go for those. We've already talked about that. There's shorter procurement cycles. So the cycles at the lower tier levels are shorter than the one at the highest tier. And time is money, right? Time is money. So we want to make certain that we're going after opportunities where we can pretty quickly get our foot in the door. Okay. Relationships are driven at the lowest tier levels. So they want to make certain that they're doing business with those they know, like, and trust. That's a real thing. They want to know you. They want you to show up. They want to get to know you as a contractor. And at the end of the day, isn't that what we always ask for? Right? Is a relationship with an organization and an entity to be able to build our business, to create sustainability, to create profitability for our companies, right? To be insert ourselves really deeply into the marketplace. That's what we want. We want to build relationships. And then there's local preference, right? So if you're a DC based business, there's a heavy preference on being CBE certified, right? And so you want to make certain that's where jurisdiction, the jurisdiction mix comes into play. Do we have an opportunity to create more opportunities for ourselves because we have proximity, right? Because we're close. We can get the work done because we live within that, our businesses exist within that jurisdiction. Okay. And then accessible decision makers, accessibility to decision makers. That goes back to the relationship process. And so no, procurement people can't talk to you about ways in which you can win opportunities. They can't do that because they can't provide a greater edge to one and not to others. But you do have an opportunity to get to know procurement officers at the lower tier levels than you do at the higher tier. And so that's why it's very, very important for businesses to think about ways in which they can mix up their opportunities within those different levels. Okay. So diversification builds strength and sustainability. It gives you an opportunity to replicate your success, right? Because if we're strong in one area, we want to be able to take that strength and shift it into other areas, other market segments. It reduces our vulnerability. That is the key. If there's one market has a disruption, we still have an opportunity to continue our operations because it's not impacting us as greatly because we have other areas that we're supporting, right? It gives us an opportunity to increase our valuation. And that goes back to the conversation I had earlier about prime versus sub. And one day your exit strategy may be to sell your business. Well, we want to be thinking about ways in which we're building an enterprise that is interesting to a buyer. And is our buyer interested in buying subcontracts or, low profitable fixed price contracts or, a business that's highly concentrated in certain areas? Or are they looking for that diversification? And does that build strength? And how does that build strength for our business? And stabilizing the workforce, right? Because when you have multiple markets that you're working within, you're providing greater employment opportunities and security to the employees that are currently working with you. If there's a shift in one area, you may have an opportunity to move resources to another area, but you have to be diversified in order to be able to do that. And then ultimately, as I said, the objective is to build legacy. We need sustainability. We want our companies to grow We want them to stand the duration of time. We wanted to make it to our exit strategy with value, right? And so diversification gives us the opportunity to do that. Okay. So dangerous over-reliance upon certain areas, which is heavy concentration. There are certain patterns that indicate concentration has moved from strategic focus to dangerous dependency, right? And we want to know, what does that look like? And so if you have a company where you've got 70% or more under a single agency, we're in a danger zone, right? If you have no pipeline of diversity to support your ability to expand across markets, you're in a danger zone. If you are reacting to market conditions, marketing and business development only occurs during an active bid cycle, right? And that's strategically based upon how our company is operating and moving towards our strategic mission, you're in a danger zone. If your business is certification dependent, you're in a danger zone, right? So you want to make certain that you're taking a look at those guardrail dashboards to ensure that based upon the market and our business and our objectives and the strategy for us to continue to grow to legacy, that we're managing these areas, okay? That we understand when we are in a danger zone, and we also have a way of shifting our business outside of that danger zone. So a key insight is certifications open doors. They open doors. They do not build businesses, okay? So you want to make certain that you are understanding that your value proposition must stand on technical expertise, proven performance, and measurable outcomes that are not eligibility status alone. So you want to evaluate your business against these areas to determine where you're over-reliant. Over-reliant means comfortable, right? You're over-reliant in a certain area because you're comfortable. Well, now let's get uncomfortable and start looking at ways in which we can diversify our portfolios and create strength and sustainability and stability for our businesses. So here's the truth about diversification. Diversification is not a defensive move. It is not. In today's environment, leadership means designing reliance before disruption forces it. So we don't ever want to put our companies in a position where the market conditions are causing us to react. We want to be in a position where we're managing and monitoring this. And yes, the market is informing us of certain things, but we're okay because we've been managing against diversification. And maybe the market is informing us that we need to start increasing in certain other areas, but we're good because we've been diversifying our portfolio. And that's the position that you want to be in as you are growing your business. The contractors who will thrive over the next 5 years are not necessarily the largest or the most established. They are the ones who recognize concentration risk, and they're working to build diversification. I can tell you that is the honest truth, because the companies that we work with that have been focused on diversifying had limited market disruption over the last year, where those who didn't focus on their diversification had some pretty significant reactions as a result of what was happening in the marketplace. And in fact, we've seen companies who have completely dissolved their contract opportunities, who had to lay off 100% of their staff and are starting to rebuild because they had limited or no diversification. And we don't want your business to ever be in that position. Your concentration reveals your capability. Your diversification reveals your leadership or your strategy. So you want to make certain that you understand the concentration, right? That you understand where you're strong, and that you are starting to develop a strategy to diversify, to build that resilience within your business. The time to build revenue resilience is not during crisis, because that's usually too late. It's too late. Crisis will overtake you, right? In those times, if you haven't done anything prior to that. It is now, while you still have the luxury of strategic planning rather than emergency response. So you as business owners, you want to make certain that you are always, always, always in a strategic planning mode, And this process of evaluating concentration and diversification is a strategic move for you. It is insight about your business. And I'm going to tell you what, if you've had some difficulty working with bankers to obtain a line of credit or any type of lending vehicles with a banker, if you start looking at your financial statements in this capacity and you start taking action to change the story of your business, you will be very surprised how bankers will shift and how they will be interested and willing to work with you, because now we've done things to increase and improve and enhance the viability and the resilience of our business. Okay. So I'm going to leave you with a little bit of homework. There's work to be done. So this is a 90-day action plan that I want you to think about. I want you to consider. In the first 30 days, I want you to do a little bit of research and assessment. I want you to start slicing and dicing your financials and take a look at what is our current revenue mix. Look at all the different areas that we talked about to place on your dashboard to determine where your revenue relies today. And if the number is heavily concentrated, don't be concerned. Just understand that that is a strength that you have. But now we are armed with knowledge. Now we want to start to determine how we can build upon our existing strength. Okay. The next 31 to 60 days is to connect and position. So you've done the research, you've done a little bit of market analysis. Now we know some areas where we want to start to advance and expand. Again, remember the power of 3. We don't want to try to expand everywhere because that makes us diluted, right? And potentially over capacity. We don't ever want to be in that position. We want to be leveraged, right? So in other words, we want to make certain that we look at the power of 3 and let's start making some connections, okay? In a way that we can start to expand beyond our current concentration. And in the last 60 to 90 days is to pursue and deliver. Identify those opportunities, those real true opportunities that we can place in our pipeline that we can start to bid on and start to increase our opportunities, to increase our bottom line, increase our resilience and our stability. So that is our 90-day plan. And as a thank you for today's webinar, I do have a revenue diversification planning worksheet that is available to you. If you go to the QR code or the website is listed below, it will first take you through a survey. Just let me know how I did today. And it will also then send you an email with the revenue diversification planning worksheet. It's a tool that will help you to start thinking about the things that you want to slice and dice out of your financial statements and how to develop and build your dashboards. And then also that 90-day action plan is also included in that worksheet. So I am going to open this up for questions right now. I'll leave this up for a moment so that you can snap the picture, make certain that you download the worksheet. But I'm going to open this up for Q&A. And I hope this information was good to you all. All right. So if you can put your questions in the chat, and let me go through the chat to see what we have here. I see a lot of meeting note takers in the room today. Yeah, I don't see any questions. So drop your questions in the chat. What do you think? What do you think about diversification and concentration? Is anybody looking at the information this way in their businesses currently?
Well, Lisa, this is Michelle. I'm gonna tell you this. I never heard of like this combination before, right? And so like I love new, getting like new ways of thinking about business, new ways of, thinking about how to approach business. No, I don't have my own business, but if I try to put myself in business owner's shoes, I've never thought about diversification as your strategy and your concentration, that's your leadership, like to put those together. I would not have thought about it in that way.
Yes. Yes,
So for me, it's a new concept. It's a new way to kind of wrap your mind around something that changes my way of thinking.
absolutely.
It definitely changes my way of thinking when it comes to a business. I do love how you talked about the whole dashboard, strategy, guardrails, like those things. Because to me, you know how you say sometimes the name might sound old, but the concept is really new in how it's presented because it can be done in so many different ways. Now, I'm gonna tell you, you grabbed me when you showed the graph that had the percentage of wow, you're totally this is what I think was 80% dependent on this one you know company or contract. I'm like, wow, so if something happened, that
You're
oh
in
my God,
trouble.
that can put you in the red for real. So yeah, that right there, that's a game changer, Lisa.
Yeah, and I will tell you, Michelle, I've been working with companies, small businesses for a really long time. And this is that when we start to analyze our financials in this way, we start having these
Hmm.
conversations, it is a game changer. It is a
Yeah.
game changer. And I'll tell you, we started doing these, having the concentration and diversification
Hmm.
discussions with our clients many years ago when companies had entered into the 8A program, right? And they only have 9 years in the program and they're starting to graduate, but they really aren't, when they get to years 7 and 8, they're not really ready to graduate because
Right.
90% of their revenue is still relying upon the 8A program, and that's too late. There's not a lot that you can do. So we started working with companies from the very beginning. Let's start analyzing. I know in the very beginning your concentration is going to be high because we're trying to
Hmm.
build on that, right? But now we're 3, 4, 5 years in, we need to start looking at other ways in which to generate revenue so that we're ready to graduate. So that's how this came into play. And then just going back to some of the things that discussions we've had around this with small businesses, that then had led us to looking at, different ratios for companies and how bankers can positively see them and the strengths that they have as an organization. So yeah, it is a game changer. It's definitely strategic. Lots more insight into the business than, just the top line and bottom line and cash flow, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot to, and
Yeah.
tax.
It is because I mean, like I said, to me, that's a game changer. Because when I saw that, I'm thinking like, oh my God, like, if something was to happen, like something has been happening with the federal contracting and things, it's like if your contract doesn't move, if it gets shut down,
Yeah,
like then what do you do if they say, well, this is on hold? Yes, I know we awarded it, but now it's on hold, right? So that
right.
means that's no revenue generated for a full-fledged contract. It's just in a holding pattern, right? And you're
Exactly.
dependent on that revenue coming in. Like you said, that's your major source on this one thing.
Right.
And this, wow, that's scary though.
It is scary. Absolutely.
It's wow, it's very scary. Let's
But you
check
don't want to
back
be a
in.
sitting duck, right? I mean, it's
No.
scary, but you don't want to be a sitting duck. So if you understand this, now it kind of gives you motivation, the fire to go and do something different,
Yeah,
right? Not
yeah.
to change your business, but let's change the way in which we pursue certain things. Let's looking at different landscapes, different areas that we can start to bring in revenue so that we're not really reliant. During the pandemic, one of the things that I work with small businesses on was building sustainability through the pandemic when everything was shut down. And one of the key sayings that we had during this process of developing new reach was, this
Mhm.
will never happen to me again.
Right.
Right. And that's
Right.
what we've got to say as small businesses.
Yeah.
This will never happen to me again. And so we've got that puts fire behind you. And it also
Yes.
puts you in a position to start building strategy to build the strength moving forward.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I hope that they will take heed, and I'm gonna tell them, please take heed, you guys, to the 30, 60, 90-day action plan. I'm looking at the chat right now. Somebody wanted advice for a company that's starting over, right?
Mhm.
Because I guess they're trying to see new pathways to it, insert this into their business. And it's a scary thing. I would say to all of you, please reach out. Please reach out to Lisa. You know, for some one-on-one time. Schedule that with her. Her company is amazing. As she
Thank
say, you
you.
know, scan the code and everything. And yeah, we really want to thank you for this, Lisa, because this is definitely new thought. It makes your brain think in a different way. You know how you say, okay, this is a reset. This is a mind reset here.
Yeah.
It makes you think differently about how you look at your business financials, how you're looking at pivoting.
Yes.
You know, how do you pivot? And I'm gonna tell you, it makes me think, is it an easy transition? Like, you know, when you have been dependent on you know, like say for the federal government contracts for so long, and then you have some non-federals here, some locals or what have you. It's almost like you have to balance your homework across them all,
Yeah,
right?
you do have to balance, but I also say don't try to pursue everything because
Right, because
that will
that's what I
drive
was
you.
thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't pursue everything, but pursue those things that make sense. And that's why you got to take a look at, you know, your strengths, your current capabilities, and how does that relate to some of the other where does it best relate to other markets? So don't try to pursue everything, honestly. But again, just going back to this is knowledge. Data is knowledge, it's information. It's what you do with that information that happens next. And that helps to create growth and strength and stability. I don't want, again, I don't want you to pursue everything, but you've got to pursue something, right? We don't want to be sitting ducks
Yeah.
again. We just don't. Yeah.
Oh, girl, setting ducks is right. Well,
Hmm.
you know what? I want to thank you. I don't believe there's any more questions in the chat. You got some great kudos here. Yes, let's give a big hand for Lisa. She really, really put us in a different mindset to make us think about something different. When it comes to this, please reach out to her, get in contact with her for her books. You see her information right here. I'm telling you, don't miss the opportunity to reach out to her. She's really, really spreading a lot of, I always say, diamonds with us, you know. She's bringing these nuggets because this is a serious educational piece. This is a wake-up call type of piece here, that can actually save us in our businesses,
Absolutely.
in how we look at them. Because, yeah, you know, people say, Michelle, I'm like, hey, we in trying times right now.
We are, but you
We are
know
in
what?
trying
Trying times
times
gives us
right now.
strength, right? We learn lessons from them, right?
Yes.
We get creative in these trying
Yes,
times.
yes. And look, and
Yes.
sometimes you don't know how creative you can be.
Yeah.
So yeah, Lisa, thank you so much for that. Thank you everyone for attending this morning. We really appreciate when you guys come because it shows us that you want to invest in your businesses. You want to have the knowledge that you need for your businesses and everything. And we really want to thank you. I want to say thank you to Charles and Lisa. I always enjoyed having you guys. Oh my gosh, it's like I learn something every time. I appreciate that. And I will be remiss if I didn't thank my team doing their job in the background. Oh my gosh, Small Business Program Office Certification and Outreach Business Development Team led by Miss Marlo Johnson. We have Michael, Alicia, Shanae, Sierra, Heather, and Shalonda. Thank you guys for always putting these together, working diligently to keep our office moving forward. I hope all of you were able to learn some important information to help your business grow and to help your business to be better. We look forward to seeing you at the next outreach that we're having. As you see it here on the screen, please scan the QR code Leading from Within on March the 4th. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you back for that. Thank you so much. You know, certification is the key to participation, and we look forward to your applications coming in. And remember, meet the primes. Okay. March 12th in person here at the New Carrollton location. Make sure that you are in the house for this, you guys. We have some great information opportunities in store for you. The construction edition, we're trying to break these up a little bit, and get a little bit more specific with some of the information. So make sure you register. Come on out. My team, we're looking forward to seeing you. I want you to take care. Check out our website. Make sure that you register for the procurement fair that's also going to be in March. It's going to be on March 11th. You'll see all the procurement officers and everybody there. So we got a lot of stuff going on, and we just want you to be supportive because this information is for you. And it is for your business to help it grow. Again, thank you, Lisa and Charles. We appreciate you. And everybody else, have a great rest of your day. Talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.